let's start by presenting ourselves. So Manu, go first, please.
Thank you, Guillermo. So I'm Manu Santamaria, Director of Product Management here at WatchGuard. And right now I'm responsible of meeting the needs of MSSPs. So mainly responsible for WatchGuard Cloud, our unified security platform. Guillermo, please.
Yeah, I'm Guillermo Gomez. I'm market owner for the endpoint security product line here at WatchGuard. I came to WatchGuard from the Panda acquisition in 2020. Many years of my career in cybersecurity, and all of them in endpoint security.
So yeah, actually, we are working together for more than 20 years. I think that between us, we have 50 years of experience in this market. So hopefully, we will be able to give you some good recommendations. Okay, so let's start with it.
Yeah. Go to the agenda. The idea for the webinar came when we are about to release a new functionality in the endpoint products that is what we call endpoint access enforcement that follows many of the principles of a zero trust model, and we are always thinking of adding functionality related to this paradigm. And in that discussions, we realize that it's not always easy to implement. Obviously, it's not easy to implement a zero trust model completely. There are many challenges that we want to highlight, but also we think that it's important to share with all of you all the different things that we can do in order to better protect our customers, reducing the attack surface, and also preparing ourselves better for those new threats. So the idea for the presentation or for the webinar is precisely that: is identifying those challenges, but more importantly, identify what options do we have to better improve the security in overall. So moving to the next slide, please, Manu. Yeah, first, let's start with what is a zero trust model. There is a lot of literature on media, so there are many definitions and discussions and points that are important. I think typically I always say that it's like standards. There are many to choose, but I think that those three aspects as main principles for the zero trust model are quite important. On one hand, is always verify explicitly the actions, where those actions occur, the location, the identities that are involved, the data that is accessed. So verify that everything is properly accessed. That is one of the principles, quite important. Second, probably is more complex to implement, and in many cases it would need the help of applications to deal with. Probably you would need a robust identity access management system in place, but that is the idea of restrict the access of the different actors to the data. So if you have a user that only needs read access to a specific area, verify that you are doing that dynamically. So that is one of the probably more complex elements in the zero trust model approach. And lastly, I think that this is quite important as well. That is, you need to assume that you are going to be breached somehow. So it's not important that you are going to get specific compromises within the network. It's more important to verify that those compromises do not get to critical data. So it's important to verify that your infrastructure is resilient enough to deal with those initial accesses, because there are many threats, there are many vulnerabilities, there are many aspects in which the attacker is going to get access to your customer systems. So you would need to verify that the damage is contained very quickly, and precisely containing it in a rapid way is going to reduce the cost that it would be that breach create. Moving forward, please. I also think that is a good way to understand a new model or a new concept is comparing it with something that we already know. So in this case, I'm trying to compare what are those principles, or what imply those principles against what typically you do in security in an infrastructure. So the traditional approach, typically we do from the outside in. So we are thinking about the perimeter, we are thinking about putting layers in the perimeter, trying to find what are the measures that we can put in the different part of the network, going back to the endpoint, going back to all those elements. In the zero trust approach, typically the way of doing it is just the reverse. So it's more important to understand where the critical data resides, who is accessing that critical data, and start working on protecting that critical data from the data to the outside. So it's a completely different approach, and trying to put focus on what is important for the user. In the traditional, on the other hand, also you always once the policies are established, everything that is accessing data is assumed that is trusted because the policy stated that that connection was valid. On the other hand, in the zero trust, you always need to explicitly verify that the access is authorized. So you need to change the mindset and always verify that that access makes sense, typically in a context. So another important differentiation between those two approaches: in the traditional one, everything is binary, so it's valid or not valid, is goodware, is malware. In the case of the zero trust approach, the intention is more verify that in the context that the action is taking place, that access is valid, that is the element is properly secured, the identity is verified, the level of access that the action is requiring is correct. So always verifying those aspects. I mentioned identities. Identity is clear, a clear element of a zero trust approach. In the traditional aspect, we always, identities are important. There are users, but in the case of zero trust, those users need to be verified in each action. They need to be authorized. They need to be, there are policies needed to verify that everything is set up correctly. And always as well, in the traditional model, it's more reactive in the sense that you wait for the technology to detect something and react to that element that has been notified. In the zero trust approach, as we mentioned, you need to think that you might be breached. So you always need to automate the analysis of elements. You need to be proactive analyzing those elements, and you need to, in the context of all those elements, making decisions. So moving forward, please. And obviously, this creates a lot of challenges. The implementation is not easy. There is a lot of effort that we need to take into consideration, because it's not deploy and forget. It's not deploying a technology and waiting for the technology to act. We need to continuously monitoring what the technology is doing. We need to verify that the policies are correct. We need to adapt to changes to those policies. So when we plan to do or to implement a zero trust approach, we need to take into consideration that it's not going to be something that is deployed and forget. It needs to be maintained. On the other hand, you need to also balance how many security measures you are putting in place, and you need to balance against the productivity of the user. If we put many measures, obviously the productivity is going to be affected. And in some cases, what is going to happen is the user is going to find a different way of doing the same thing. So we need to avoid fighting with the user. We need to balance those security measures and those contexts to simplify security. As well, it's not going to be complete. In fact, reading many articles about implementations and why implementations fail, in some cases, trying to cope with too much scope is not the best way to implement a zero trust model. It's important to focus on the critical aspects and the critical data and building from that element to the whole network instead of trying to complete or to have a model that is covering everything. You are going to find many obstacles on that journey. As I said, in many cases, applications are not prepared for this specific model. They are not allowing creating those policies in the way that we will want to have them, and those legacy systems needs to be taken into consideration. And in the end, what implies is cost to implement those principles, and obviously we need to plan for that. A couple of predictions, in this case from Gartner, there was a Biden's executive order to force, in this case was federal agencies in the US to implement a zero trust model start implementing a zero trust model by September 2024. The prediction for Gartner is that 75% of those agencies that they have the objective, they probably will plan and they will budget for implementing those models. 75 will fail. So clearly, it's not going to be an easy path doing this. And also, there is another prediction that is only 10%. For me, it's a low number because there is a lot of expectations in companies, more the large companies, because they have more resources to deal with this new paradigm. Only 10% will implement a successful zero trust model by 2026. So clearly, the indicators are that on one hand, those principles are important for the new threats. So we need to start working towards implementing those aspects. On the other hand, there are challenges and there are elements that clearly points us that it's not going to be an easy journey. Despite that, there are, as I said, there are many things that we can do for improving the security of our customers. Go ahead, Manu, please.
Yes.
We have this, our first question to the in this case is, I want to know, one thing that we were discussing is how many you have started and are thinking to implementing a zero trust model. There are many surveys. We have different surveys. There is a blog post in our website, by the way, that is talks about one of the surveys. And reality is many customers and partners have started this journey. So clearly it's taking traction. Probably it's because of the threat that we are suffering nowadays. Obviously, the traditional approach seems not to be enough. So thank you. I see that is, 38 no. Well, there are still room for improvement, I think, in this survey, but clearly there is something that you have heard about it, and sooner or later, your customers are going to start asking for this kind of capabilities. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Guillermo. I think it was very interesting what you were saying. Is zero trust is very trendy. Many people want to implement this approach, but the main challenge is to find the right balance between this level of security and the convenience, right? And that's why many companies are failing. So, as you were recommending, a step-by-step process, implementing the zero trust policies, trying to find managed zero trust policies, it could be the right approach. Okay,
thank you.
So Guillermo was explaining what is a zero trust model, the main principles, and I want to try to explain why a zero trust model is needed, right? It is curious because 10 years ago, nobody was talking about zero trust models, or almost nobody. And 5 years ago, I would say that very few people was talking about zero trust models. And now it's a trendy topic, right? And many of the, many or some of the, I would say many of the security vendors are offering options to implement the zero trust approach, right? And the reason for, in my opinion, the main reason for this change is because of the attack surface expansion. So some 10 years ago, or probably more years ago, the protection was much easier, right? We had the endpoints, we had the servers, and with perimeter solutions and with an endpoint solution, it was enough. But as the number of applications, the complexity of the environments is growing, the hybrid work, so mobile identity and applications is the new perimeter. And now we are even expanding to SaaS applications, cloud workloads, IoT, data, social media. So the perimeter is becoming much more complex. The entry points that an attacker can use in order to exploit, to gain access to the systems is much bigger. This is the main problem, the main reason as the zero trust models are needed now. Actually, I was reading that Gartner says that the attack surface expansion is the #1 trend for increasing potential cyber threats. So, and talking about the threats and how they are trying to gain access to the systems, we are seeing a trend in the entry vectors that they are trying to use credentials. Probably you have heard about this. And the reason for that is that there are more exposed internet exposed services, more cloud applications, more SaaS applications. So at this moment, the way to protect those cloud applications is the credential, right? So that's why this is the new way to protect those services. So hackers are trying to steal those credentials, or also they are trying to obtain those credentials using brute force attacks. A typical attack that we are seeing is the RDP servers exposed to internet, hackers trying to obtain the credentials using brute force, and they are quite successful with that. So also, as there are more and more applications that we are using in the environments, there are more vulnerabilities. We need to keep the software updated. Otherwise, hackers will be using the applications exposed to internet, or the applications we are using locally in the endpoints, to try to gain access in the systems. Still, the phishing is still one entry vector that is very common. But as I said at the beginning, the identity and the credentials stolen is becoming one of the main entry vectors. And once they are inside the organization, that they try to move laterally in order to gain access to all the computers, or at least to more computers in the organizations. They do that trying to copy themselves through using SMB, trying to exploit some vulnerabilities, or trying to steal the credentials from the Active Directory. There are many ways they try to do the lateral movements because they want to have the maximum impact in the customer. So the more impact they have in the customer, the more chances they will have to obtain benefit, right? So that's why they try to move laterally. And they do that, by the way, using command and control. So this is also another trend. We are seeing that more and more the attacks are human operated, using what we call command and control. We will talk about it in the next slide. So once they are inside, they try to encrypt the data. They try to remove or delete the backups. And what we are also seeing right now is that they are trying to exfiltrate as much information as they can. So what they are realizing is that the customers pay more if the information is exfiltrated than if they encrypt the data. So it's also a trend that they are exfiltrating the data.
Yeah, I read a report from, I believe it was from Microsoft. They were saying that customers are 2.5 times more willing to pay for a data that has been stolen than for data that has been encrypted. So clearly there is a new way to get money from our customers. So a clear trend and a clear threat for us.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. Okay, and also wanted to talk about the types of cyber attacks. As you can see here, there are more remote access Trojans, rats, stealers. So this is the new kind of attacks. And as I was commenting before, many of the attacks right now are human operated. What the hackers try is to try to gain access with to try to bypass the security solutions with a minor piece of code. So maybe it's a small script. So once they gain access, they will take the more advanced options using human operated attacks using command and control. Those kinds of attacks are growing, and that's another reason for what we need zero trust approaches, because those attacks are becoming more complex. The zero trust is the natural response to the complexity of the environments and to the complexity of the attacks. Finally, I wanted to highlight the supply chain attacks. Again, you know that the supply chain attacks are the ones affecting to third-party software. So hackers are able to modify somehow a third-party application, a third-party library, so they get inside with a software that apparently is licit. I am putting here the example of the 3CX, you know, the attack that SolarWinds suffered, I think it was last year in 2023. Hundreds of thousands of devices were affected by that, as this was an application broadly shared in the community. And this is another example of the need of a zero trust approach, because this is a licit software. So you can't trust even Manu, with the licit software. Yeah.
Yeah, Manu, and this ties back to the type of malware we are seeing, because in this specific case, well, there's a voice IP attack. In this specific case, the payload wasn't a stealer. So the intention was to get data, because in the end, with those stolen credentials, they can multiply the number of attacks they can run. So instead of for the customers that are affected by the software that was vulnerable, they decided to start collecting data, and probably we will see many attacks coming from the data that was breached thanks to the supply chain attack. So it's again same idea. Attackers have professionalized heavily. They are getting data, they are storing data, they are using that data in many different attacks. Even they sell this data in the dark web, and in many cases they are able to put someone behind the attack. So they are able to, depending on the context and depending on what is possible in that specific environment, to do one thing or the other. So that is the real threat. And one important thing is, it's not affecting large accounts. It's not only affecting large accounts. It's not only affecting people that are target. Problem is that if you get if someone downloads or clicks in a phishing mail and downloads something, and that something starts collecting data, a token, for instance, that can be cracked offline, those credentials could be used to stall or to start the attack, and everybody is affected. So we need to be well, I guess that we need to be aware of this threat completely.
Yeah, totally agree. Thank you, Guillermo.
Yeah, and we are putting it's difficult. Zero trust is difficult to put in place. There are threats that are becoming more complex. So it seems that we are drawing a very black picture, but it's not true. The reality, initially, we need to be sure that 100% security is not possible. I would say that it's not possible. We need to be as closer to that 100% as possible, but that 100% is, as I said, impossible. There are many actions that we can take with the tools in place, what we have at hand, to, in many cases, using those principles of the zero trust model to better protect our customers. And the first thing that I highlight is take control of the assets. One thing that we have seen in our lab is, in a I can't remember the exact percentage. It was around 45% of the cases that were uploaded as as a potential incident, malware incidents in the lab, came from non-managed devices. And I saw this same uh, statistic from other vendors that are saying the same. Non-protected devices is an important threat, and more in this environment, as Manu mentioned, that we do have devices that are beyond our control. We have remote workers that maybe they have their corporate devices in an environment that is shared with their own devices. So those connections and those different elements that are included in our security infrastructure needs to be taken into consideration. So that is one thing. Second, very easy. And nowadays there are many tools to maintain the systems up to date. It's a simple way to say that patch management is a critical process, and you would need to be on top of that to maintain those systems up to date. Identities, as I said, is another aspect that needs to be taken into consideration. So the attacker will try to stole credentials, will try to break tokens that are used within the protocols in the network. So credentials is a weak point. So we need to verify that we are putting something, a layer on that to make that more secure. MFA is a good example. Trying to put MFA is going to increase that capability. Before moving to the raise security awareness, also the passwords. We are all waiting for the passkey standard. Despite that it seems promising, I think that we are going to live with credentials for a long time, and it's a similar concept that with the balance. We need to balance between convenience and security. It's very difficult for users to maintain separate credentials for every service, to maintain complex credentials for everything. So probably using a password manager is a good way to increase your resilience on insecurity. Raise security awareness, that is a simple one. Typically, if one thing that I believe it happens is in the digital world, we don't feel the same threats as we do in the physical world. I do not see myself walking in a dark street at night, but I don't have the same feeling when I'm surfing or browsing through emails or through pages in internet. So we need to raise that sentiment, and we need to send the same concepts that you need to verify everything, and you need to authorize every action, and you need to verify that what is you are going to do is important. We need to train our customers and our users to have that mindset. So this is an important one. In many cases, it's not deploying anything, but it's something to take into consideration. Nowadays, there are more technologies to take advantage of. As we mentioned in the principles, you need to think that you might be breached. So it's important to have a good XDR implementation and approach, and connect all those different layers with the telemetry and with the data that is needed to identify potential actions that go beyond those policies and highlight that you may be compromised. And as I said, it's important. The important thing is detecting that compromise. The sooner the better, because probably you are going to have some at some point. Moving forward, there is another trend that we haven't mentioned that is quite important. That is the shortage of talent in cybersecurity. If we are talking about, more importantly, we are talking about SMBs and medium market, that is even more complex because they have enough with focusing in their business. So in this case, through you as partner, or you by connecting with a security provider that gives you the capabilities or the services or the potential of a managed detection and response solution, that could be a very good way to improve your security posture in the end. And finally, trying to find a security provider that is working on those principles. For instance, as I mentioned before, in WatchGuard, we are about to release the endpoint access enforcement. What it does is verifying that connections from devices are coming from a device that is already protected. We have the zero trust attestation service. So there are different elements that help you start this journey of applying zero trust principles in your environment. And from those, one question that we want to ask you is, out of those, which one you feel is most interesting for your where you are in your journey at this moment? What you think that is that will help you more on protecting your systems? And interestingly, yeah, MFA. I like to see MFA going up. As I said, identities. We need to know who is behind the identity. That is a clear challenge. And manage detection and response. I think that is interesting as well. I like seeing quite a few responses on that one. We need to recognize that it's 24/7. So it's very difficult for everybody to implement this kind of thing. So relying on someone that is able to provide that capability is a good strategy, I guess. So thank you.
Yeah. I see that there is an important diversity in the answers. So
yeah, it is.
Yeah. So Guillermo, you need to be clear in what is more important for people.
Well, I think that all of them are important. No, it's a good point. I forget to mention. I try to put them in what I perceive that is easier to more complex in terms of understanding what to do and how to set up, even the cost, or even take in consideration other aspects. But yes, there are. It's interesting to see that there are many options that are valid and available for us.
Yeah. Actually, it's difficult to say which one is more important than the other. So,
yeah.
All right. So now we wanted to have some time if there are some questions.
So one just came through. Sorry, Guillermo. One just came through. Implementing lock mode in EPDR, is that zero trust?
Well, I answered yes. It's a way of implementing zero trust approach for several reasons. On the one hand, is what we are providing with the zero trust model and the block capability of the product is we are verifying that every binary code that is securing in the customer network is trusted by us. So what we do is we classify 100% of what is running in the system, and only what is trusted is allowed to run. That is the first thing. Second is, no matter what that element has been classified as legitimate, we continuously monitor what that element is doing. And if at some point start behaving in a way that is not licit, it would be blocked. It would be blocked as well. So we, in the zero trust attestation service, we took into consideration many of the principles for the zero trust model, and we provide that as a service. So I would say that that would be a good example of applying those principles with the help of a security provider.
Guillermo, related to that, for those who know EPDR, even if you are in hardening mode with in the configuration of the zero trust application service, is that the zero trust approach?
Yeah, it is. Again, and in that case, with the hardening mode, instead of for the ones that do not understand what we are talking about, it seems that Glenn knows, or at least knows, our products and what we provide with them. We do have a model in which, as I said, we classify 100% of the elements that are running in the customer systems, and we do have 3 different settings. It could be audit mode, in which we don't block anything. We do not act but we monitor and classify everything and alert on what we see. We have the block mode, that is what Glenn asked. What we do is, if it's not known to us, it's blocked, no matter it was in the device before. And we have the hardening mode, as Manu mentioned, that is, we try to maintain the convenience with new things that are appearing in the system, and that classification capability we provide. In any case, what we do in that model is everything that is within the device, we assume that might be probably is trusted. So what we do is we do not block preventively, but we analyze that element in any case, and we apply policies depending on the result of that classification. But everything that is coming from the outside, we put in a tag that needs to be analyzed before allowing it to run. Typically, threats are coming from the outside. So that is the contextual-based approach. Those are the concepts that are also included in this component. So that's why I'm thinking that yes, EPDR is following those principles with this service.
Yeah, definitely. So I think that both configuration modes are zero trust. Of course, the log mode is the best option for those who want to apply a more restricted zero trust approach. Any other question, Liz, or we can continue?
You can continue. Thanks, guys.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so now we want to talk very quickly about the main principles, the main technologies that we are adding in WatchGuard to implement the zero trust approach. We are continuously innovating, and in 2018 we added AuthPoint, which is our MFA or multi-factor authentication application that is added in our portfolio. In 2021 we added in our unified security platform the new endpoint security portfolio that WatchGuard acquired. And as part of this endpoint security portfolio, we added the Zero Trust application service that Guillermo was explaining 2 minutes ago. I will talk about it in a couple of minutes. Also, MDR is another principle, another pillar of our Zero Trust approach. It was added in our portfolio in 2023. And the complete XDR. And with XDR, we have had many milestones. This is the last one because right now we are about to integrate the last product that we wanted to integrate in XDR in order to have the full WatchGuard portfolio integrated in our ThreatSync SDR. I'm talking about AuthPoint. So identity will be integrated in ThreatSync SDR in Q4 this year, and with that, we have completed the full integration of our WatchGuard portfolio. So let me talk very quickly about the different solutions that we have in order to implement our Zero Trust approach. AuthPoint, as I said, is our multi-factor authentication solution, and it allows us to add multi-factor authentication for any SaaS application, and also in the corporate laptops or computers. We can add multi-factor authentication when some specific applications are executed or when we log into the PC. And that multi-factor authentication can be controlled through the mobile or through tokens in case for users that don't have a mobile or they prefer hardware token security. And AuthPoint, as Guillermo was explaining at the beginning of this webinar, is a key principle in a Zero Trust approach. We need to identify who is behind the endpoints, who is behind the use of the applications. So the identity first approach is a key principle implementing a Zero Trust approach. So, and also, as part of the AuthPoint application, we have a risk-based policy management that it allows us to, for example, not to allow authentication if you are out of the working hours, or if you are in a different location, or depending on other conditions. So it is this is a Zero Trust approach that it helps to accomplish one of the key zero trust principles. Another key protection layer that we have in the WatchGuard portfolio is the zero trust application service that Guillermo was explaining. So at some moment, we were trying to add as many technologies as we could in the endpoint security. We were adding behavior protection, contextual detections, heuristics, many things. But at the end of the day, we were allowing to execute unknown applications in the endpoints. So some of the applications in the endpoints were classified as malware. Some others were classified as goodware. But what is going on with the unknown or suspicious files? We were allowing to execute some unknown applications or suspicious applications. And we realized that most of the infections that our customers were having was due to that. So it was a crazy idea, but we decided to implement a zero trust approach. So the idea was only to allow to execute applications that are listed, applications that we call goodware applications. So we implemented what we call a zero trust application service that is included in all the EDR solutions in the endpoint security portfolio. So in the EDR, in the EPDR, in the advanced EPDR, in any application included in our EDR technologies. And what we do is that we only allow to execute goodware. And we were able to implement that as we have experts in artificial intelligence and machine learning. We were innovating with that many years ago, and we were able to start with this service in 2015. And at this moment, with the artificial intelligence, we were able to classify less than the percentage that we are classifying right now. We were releasing many versions of this algorithm that we internally call ranker. And right now, with automatic classification through artificial intelligence, we are able to classify 99.98% of the applications. The remaining 0.02% of the applications are classified with technicians around the world. There is an SLA, so those technicians need to classify the applications in less than 4 hours in 99.95% of the cases. And the final result is that we have the malware under control, as we only allow to execute what is classified as goodware. But again, here is one important thing that I wanted to share with you. We don't even trust in the goodware. We continue monitoring the goodware, because what we are seeing in some cases is that some hackers start with a goodware software, and once they realize that with goodware they don't gain enough money, they convert the goodware in malware. That's one case. Another case is that the goodware could suffer a supply chain attack. So we need to continuously monitor the goodware in order to make sure that goodware keeps on being goodware. And this is, again, a zero trust approach that we implement as part of the zero trust application service. The result of this zero trust application service is that our customers are better protected, and we are seeing that the unknown applications that we are blocking, that we are stopping with this service, in some cases are zero-day malware. 3 out of 1,000 unknown files are new malware. So we are stopping zero-day attacks with this new service, and this is thanks to the artificial intelligence that we use to classify automatically these threats. So this is a real value, a good example of how useful is the artificial intelligence being used in our solutions, right? It's not artificial intelligence right now. Some people think that it's only ChatGPT, but there are many other kinds of artificial intelligence that is really useful for the world, for the security solutions, for whatever, right? We also wanted to show this slide with the number of infections in our customers using our EDR solution. We almost have 100,000 customers with our EDR solutions, And you can see here that when we released the first version of the Zero Trust application service, there were many infections every week, too many. Once we released this service, the number of infections started to drop quickly. And in the last 5 years, there are almost 0 infections in our customer base. We need to cross our fingers. There are some months where we don't have any infections in customers with the protection installed in all the endpoints, right? And up and running. As Guillermo was mentioning before, one of the main entry vectors is computers are protected, computers are managed. So it's very important to have the protection in all the endpoints. But the results are here.
Yeah, and just to put a bit of a context, 2015 was, I don't know if you remember what happened at that time, but we were hit by polymorphic infections all over the place. Everything was polymorphic at that time. And at that moment, the attackers started to use fileless attacks as well, scripting and things like that. So it was a very tough moment for the security industry. Our response to that threat was the Zero Trust attestation model. As Manu mentioned, the results we gained applying this model were outstanding, at least what we see in our internal data.
Yeah, I didn't remember that. Thank you, Guillermo. So MDR is another pillar as part of our Zero Trust approach. For those customers who are looking for the excellence in terms of security, we offer MDR in order to detect, in order to stop fileless and malwareless attacks. So the malware is under control with the Zero Trust application service, but there is still some kind of attacks that needs to be, that are better controlled with an MDR service, right? Of course, this is 24/7, and it will allow us to monitor indicators of attacks, suspicious behaviors, in order to provide a rapid response when necessary. This is done through the channel. We notify to the channel. Also, the channel can decide in the onboarding process that we are the ones that can decide to add in the endpoints if necessary. Yeah, this is, as I said, another pillar of Zero Trust approach. And finally, I wanted to talk a little bit about the XDR solution. We are very excited as we were able finally to integrate all of the WatchGuard portfolio in our Threat XDR. We are releasing the AuthPoint integration in Q4. So identity is now fully integrated in our Threat XDR. And this integration of all of our solutions in XDR allow us to implement use cases as the one I am showing here, right? Imagine that you don't want to allow to access to the contractors out in any hour out of the working hours, right? From Monday to Friday, from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. So what we could do with all the solutions integrated in Threat XDR is to enforce the disconnection of the VPN SSL after after the business hours, to enforce disconnect the Wi-Fi, to enforce the logging off of in the endpoint with the endpoint technologies, to block any new authentication in using the AuthPoint after this timetable. So having a broad portfolio integrated in XDR is not only about gathering more telemetry and being able to detect more things. It's also about the response that we can provide in an automated way. So implementing Zero Trust policies again through our Threat XDR. Another question we wanted to do, and I think this is one of the last ones. Again, it looks like there are, yeah, it's curious. There are a high diversity in the answers.
All answers are correct in any case.
Yeah, actually.
Everything helps. Obviously, everything helps reducing the the problems that we can have. So that is clear. MDR, clearly, is an interesting one. XDR, something that obviously is a trending topic nowadays as well. Yeah. I like the MDR in my opinion, as I said, because we need to take into consideration that this is a 24/7 activity. So that is we need to be careful because we need to budget in advance for providing that kind of capabilities, and we have implemented our own MDR service, and we know how hard it is maintaining a SOC, maintaining the technicians working in 24/7 is something to take into consideration. But thank you for the answers. Very interesting what we have seen. Thank you.
Yep. So our last slide.
Very quickly, takeaways to leave a few minutes for questions. Very easy. Make sure that your critical assets are under control. So you need to know what are you protecting and maintain that in a good shape. Layers are important. So we are not going to say that you need to not only is starting from the inside out. You need to protect all the different layers as much as possible. As defenders, we need to verify that there are not weak points in our defenses. MFA is a huge help on doing this because, as Manu mentioned, and I did as well, we need to know who is behind credentials. That is a new target, as a target nowadays. For me, leverage on managed services, as I said, in many cases, within the company, we have many roles. We need to run many activities for being productive and for gaining the objectives. So leverage on the MSPs, leverage on you also to provide those managed services. I think that is a good way of solving the problem. And finally, seeking for a security vendor that is implementing those zero trust principles is a good option as well. Yeah.
We have the last question before moving forward to the last questions and answers that we could have.
Yeah, many answered, so we didn't do a good job doing in the webinar. A third.
Yeah.
This goes against us, by the way. No, but thank you for the answers. Very interesting. And I see that there are also questions in the chat. There are, at least I see a couple. Maybe we can cover before we close the webinar. So thank you for all the answers during the webinar. Very interesting for us.
So one question is it possible to license MDR only for critical assets like servers, but not for all endpoints with EPDR?
I could suggest not doing that because, as I mentioned, we need to understand the context of from where the requests are coming to the servers. So you lose a lot of context if you don't have the whole picture and the whole telemetry for the service to understand what is happening in a potential attack. So it could be possible. So there is a way of doing it. I think that is not a good approach. I think that we need to protect not only the critical servers, but also the devices that are accessing those services.
Actually, we don't allow that from a commercial perspective, as we don't believe that this is a good approach. At the end of the day, the security is as strong as the weakest point, right? So, and as Guillermo was saying, the telemetry needs to be seen in the whole network. Remember what we were commenting about the lateral movements. So just protecting servers is just adding additional protection, additional MDR just to the servers is not useful. So it's not that's something that we recommend. Not only for commercial purposes, it's because we don't feel that is a good security approach.
Thank you, guys. And then it looks like those are the only questions that came through. If anyone has any other questions, one just came through. Can you use YubiKey with WatchGuard AuthPoint?
Yeah, well, first thing, I'm not an expert in AuthPoint. I'm coming from the endpoint, but I am most sure that we do not support YubiKey as a provider for hardware tokens. We do provide hardware tokens, by the way, and we also allow third-party hardware tokens that follow the Auth protocol. But YubiKey, I don't think we support that at this moment.
Awesome. Thank you, Guillermo. Other than that, it looks like there are no more questions. Do you have any final words before we end the webinar?
No, thank you for listening to us. As I said, we are working internally. We are working hard between the different product lines to find opportunities to build solutions and use cases that follow the zero trust approach. I think that we are in a good position to deliver those kind of protections or protections with those principles behind. So for us, it's very important to explain what we are doing and to hear from you where you are in your journey of implementing the zero trust model. So again, thank you for attending the webinar and thank you for the questions and the answers you provide us.
Yeah, just to say that that again, thank you all for all the questions, just for being here. We really believe that the zero trust approach is something that we need to address. That's something that we need to accomplish. One of the main challenges, as Guillermo was commenting at the beginning of the presentation, is to try to find the right balance between security and inconvenience. That's why we are trying to always implement the zero trust pillars in a managed way. The zero trust application services managed, the MDR, XDR with automated policies, trying to minimize the inconvenience, and that's what it will help you to implement the zero trust approach in a more easy way, because as Guillermo was commenting at the beginning, only 10% of the companies were successful implementing zero trust approaches. So try to find a managed zero trust approach whenever you can, and keep in mind that the zero trust policies is not enough. It needs to be combined with the traditional security solutions. Just that's the summary I wanted to share at the end. Thank you for attending, and hope this webinar was useful for you.
Yeah, thank you.